Buckle up for AEC Traiblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the AEC Traiblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing founders of the AEC. Today with us is Michael Pink. He's the founder and CEO of SmartPM Technologies. He's a construction industry professional with over 20 years of experience in project controls, risk management, and dispute resolution. After spending decades forensically analyzing construction projects, Michael founded SmartPM in 2016 to provide real-time automated project controls and schedule analytics to keep projects on time, on budget, and out of court. I love that. Outside of SmartPM, Michael is a family man who loves spending time with his wife, 3 children, and he's also an avid skier and fisherman. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm a little, just a little bit sad because we can share the sadness on the fact that you love to ski and you live in Atlanta. I live in Miami. I know how that feels.
Yes, it's difficult. I get to go maybe once a year. I used to go a lot more. I grew up north, so I got to ski, the Northeast, Vermont, New Hampshire area. And now, yes, we get to go skiing. We usually go out west about hopefully once a year. How about yourself?
I think I do it twice a year. I would love to do it more. Typically, every time I go to a conference in the West Coast, I typically go to Mammoth or maybe Utah or Colorado if I can convince my girlfriend to spend a weekend there. So yeah, the same.
Yeah,
same
I'm going to be doing that. I think piggybacking on Groundbreak this year. They're in Denver, so I'm hopeful that I'll get a couple days out there. And I think Keystone's the closest, so I was thinking about, maybe going out there Friday and Saturday after that event. But try to figure it out just like you.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard when you live in the states. They're hot states compared to the north.
And being down in Florida, there's some mountains that I'll take my kids to in like North Carolina, like a few hours away. But I mean, it's hit or miss, and it's not the skiing that I like to do. But it's at least something to get them, warmed up and solve their skiing woes for a day. But yeah, I usually leave those places frustrated. Like, man, that mountain's tiny. There was no snow.
The good thing is, like, if you're a child, well, you have fun anyway. Like, if you're an adult, that's a problem for sure.
Yeah. I've spoiled myself so that the North Carolina mountains aren't cutting it.
Well, I used to live in Vegas, and there is a ski resort there, so I know how you feel. I used to go to the ski resort, and it's just 3 lanes. That's it, and it's super small, and I know how it feels to only have a small resort nearby. So
yeah, and it could be slushy snow around here, or no snow when you get there, and all of that. I did go to Austria last winter, which was awesome.
Oh, yeah. The Alps.
Yes, it was pretty amazing.
Different
type of skiing out there, though. It took a minute to get used to it.
It's like, I feel that even the mountains are different in terms of, like, they're more steep, and like it's different in the US, like, generally, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, they don't have names for, at least where I was, they didn't have names. They had numbers, and like a number for a trail could represent an entire face of a mountain, and it could be, the coloring system was different. And I'm like, all right, is this consistent with a black or a blue? And I have my kids and my wife, and I'm like, yeah, I think this will be good. And then they'll be like, why are you taking me on this thing?
Forgot about that. It's true that the colors are not black diamond or double black diamond.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or names. It's like,
true.
meet me
Or
on
names.
trail 13. And
Yeah,
there's no
true.
trees.
Yeah, and there are no trees.
Yeah,
True.
so
Uh,
being able to like see the snow was hard, and the time we were there it was April, so it went from one day it was icy, another day it was slushy, another day it was powdery, and then it was crunchy, and you can't really tell because there's no like shadows. You're like, I don't
yeah.
know if I'm hitting a mogul or what. It was fun though. I loved it. After a little bit of time, I was like, all right, I got this. I know how to ski this stuff now.
You get used to it. But
Yeah.
going back to yourself, where were you born or where were you raised and to become a professional in the AC?
Well, I was raised, I lived in Georgia, where I live now, until I was 5. We moved to New York. I have 5 brothers and sisters, so we all packed it up and moved to New York. And then um, I lived there throughout, all of my, elementary, middle school, and high school, and then ended up going back to Georgia Tech, studying industrial engineering. And one of the jobs I got when I was in college was working for a contractor doing, support to the project management teams, and, running errands and going down to City Hall and putting together budgets and payment applications and running things to the site teams. And, I ended up getting involved in that. And ultimately, when I graduated, a job offer came from KPMG, because they saw I have an engineering background and construction experience, and they were looking for, a data analyst type, who could look at projects and help put better processes and controls in place, as well as understand, where things went wrong and why they happened. So pretty much proactive and reactive services. And that's really, the story of how I ended up getting into construction was really by happenstance. I wasn't intending to graduate college and go the direction I did. It just sort of happened that way, but I'm happy that it did.
Interesting. I'm gonna change gears a little bit here because the other day I was speaking with an investor, a VC, right? And he was telling me that he has certain criteria to not to know if a founder is going to be successful on an AEC startup, but nice to have, right? Nice to have items. And one of them was being an employee on either one of the big four, like Price, KPMG, Deloitte, or being on a large corporate company for the construction industry. Do you think that's something that adds a lot of value, given the fact that you have the experience? Sorry to changing gears a little bit here.
I mean, for me, it did. I mean, if you think about what we were doing, we were coming into projects and quickly understanding them, and then giving feedback, for whatever reason it may be. Or coming into companies and looking at multiple projects and helping them with, improving operations. So, what I think I got that was most beneficial was exposure to, hundreds of different projects, as opposed to some people are, on a project for 3 years, and then they go to the next project for 3 years, or sort of doing similar things. But we were coming in and having to diagnose and understand the entire project, and for different reasons, and use the data in different ways. But I got to see a lot, and I got to see a lot of things that, a lot of patterns that exist, a lot of problems that exist, a lot of challenges that people face, in a lot of different projects of different sizes. Sometimes we're looking at, mega projects, multi-billion-dollar plans and programs. And then other times we're digging into, underground conduit project in Queens, or another time you're looking at the budgeting process for the Board of Education on their construction program. So the visibility that you get in such a short amount of time, as you know, by being a person that's coming in to support and solve a problem or identify a risk, to help manage the dollars and cents of the project and the time, you get to see a lot. And I think that was very beneficial to me.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because it's true. Like, and it's not a bad thing. But if you're an employee on a GC or SAF, whatever, and you work on large projects, you end up having a lot of experience, but you might only have worked on 3 projects or 4 projects in your whole life. And again, it's not a bad thing, but it's nice to have a skill set with experience on multiple projects, multiple companies. Also another important thing, you got to see the best and the worst of many different companies, right?
Yeah, we also got to work in all, with all stakeholders. So sometimes you get hired by a GC, sometimes you get hired by an owner, sometimes you get hired by an insurance company, sometimes you get hired by a sub. So you get to, see that vantage point as well. So I think that, understanding the complexities of the relationships and the entities involved, and understanding, what data is relevant amongst the project to them, and understanding, their view of the world is also a cool thing.
Interesting. So now going back to young Mike, not that you're old, but younger Mike. After you left KPMG, what did you do?
So I bounced around. Actually, I worked at 5 different consulting companies over we'll call it a 15-year span. But after and it was generally doing the same stuff. It was just moving to a different company. So I worked at KPMG. I worked at a company called Exponent, which is an engineering consulting company, but they did a lot more, we'll call it claims work at the time. Then I moved to Deloitte, who did a lot more, did a pretty good balance of project controls, cost analysis, predictive, proactive services, as well as, dispute side, or writing the ships on projects that were headed down a bad path. And then I wanted to move out of New York, and I got a job down here in Atlanta at a company called FTI. And then I worked at another boutique consulting firm, but that was when I started having a fever pitch. It was like, okay, we are being asked and paid a lot of money to do things that, first of all, I'm tired of doing. I mean, doing this manual analysis with some tools here and there, but not really any tools of great substance, and consultants being, called frequently after the problem has happened instead of helping them avoid the problem altogether was a little bit, I guess, unnerving to me. I was saying, well, I think there's a way to automate what we do, because I'm looking at the same data. I'm just looking at it on a different job, and I'm analyzing things in a similar way. And usually the first place I went with any analysis, which could be, proactive project controls, or, looking at a project that was headed down a bad path, or getting involved in the dispute side of things or the claim side of things, was get me the schedule data. Just get me that, because that's going to tell me about everything I need to know about the actual project. What the plan was to build this thing, how that evolved, what sort of risks were evident in the scheduling process inherently from the beginning, what sort of impacts were happening, what were the decisions being made along the way. That would give me a lot of understanding and catch me up to the history and potential future of the project really quick. And then I would get into more granular details about, okay, so why did these things happen and how much did it cost? So to me, I saw a lot of patterns, and I kept saying to the teams that I worked with, like, guys, I don't think any of us like doing this manually. I think there's a way to get ahead of it, and I think our customers might like that. using technology. And I think us as an organization can be a lot more useful and helpful, and can sell that service if we bring technology into the equation instead of just billable hours, because nobody's calling us up at the beginning of the job saying, help me not screw up here. And I'll pay you $300 an hour. They're going, we got this, we got this, we got this. Oh, wait, now we're in trouble. Let's call the consultant. And I didn't like that model. And having seen as much as I had, I saw opportunity to, give somebody a software that could really do what would need to be done to effectively manage a job with the data that they have.
I love the path that you did, and you actually try to avoid the problems before they happen, and not being a firefighter, right? And nobody likes that. Nobody likes to get to be a consultant that fix things, and we all wish that we're called before the issue happens. But like you said, that never happens. Um, and I'm also curious. You have a lot of experience at the time. You had a lot of experience dealing with this same problem. You knew there was a problem. You knew technology can solve it. How you started? Like for you, it was like it's obvious. I'm gonna do it this way, or you still had to go through when you found a startup, you start speaking with potential clients and getting feedback. How was it for you at the beginning, given the fact that you already had a lot of experience with that specific problem that you were trying to solve?
I like the question. It's a good one because I learned a lot from my own, we'll call it my own bias. I was make the assumption that if people are paying me to do this work at $300 an hour, and I can build something to automate it, it should be a slam dunk sale, right? And that was not the case. And I thought, the people who would want it most would be the consultants who were probably tired of doing the analysis just like I was. But to be honest with you, it sort of didn't work for them because they bill hourly, right? And if you're automating that, it changes the model. So yeah, early on, we went down a path and tried to sell a product, and there weren't any takers. And now I'm sitting here going, okay, what's going on here? People pay me as a human to do this, but they don't want to pay me to give them a software to do it. Why not? And what don't I know? What am I not seeing here? And I had to go back and do a lot of customer discovery, and we followed a process of really first qualifying, is this a problem, right? Is delay and overrun something that people would be willing to solve if they could without a human? And the answer was yes. Nobody likes it. Nobody even wants to talk about it. Delay is like a taboo term. The next question was, okay, so if they want to solve that problem, how do they want to solve that problem, and who wants to solve that problem? And we met with all different types of people. We met with architects and project managers and supers and subs, and we met with executives and on the owners, on the contractor side. We met with schedulers and project controls people. And yeah, we found out that both sides would really like to solve that problem, but they want to do it they have to do it in kind of a different way. So the next phase was, okay, so if I can present you with this information, looking like this way, does that help you solve this problem? Yes or no? And then I started to gather what is it going to take to remove the human, the consultant, the specialist, that the person out of the middle. And is there a way to develop something that presents information a certain way that makes sense to the individuals that are seeking to solve this problem, such that they can use that and benefit from it, and they understand it and know exactly what to do with it? And that's really what we had to figure out in the early days, which spanned years. And really, we got to a point where we had one pivot left in us. And that's where we did this massive customer discovery process through an organization, and actually an accelerator through Georgia Tech. It was called Flashpoint. That's what they taught us is, okay, pretend like you can now admit to yourself that you know nothing of what they want, and let's start from scratch, and let's get all your bias out of the equation. Let's get all of your assumptions out of the equation, and let's go test the market and do it in an iterative way. And then at the end, if you can get them to literally want to pay you to provide that service and really ask you like wholeheartely, when can I get that? Then maybe you're onto something. And we got there. And that was cool. I remember, there's this thing called authentic demand. Can you get somebody, when you tell them what you can do for them with a technology, to literally want to write you a check right there, right then and there, to get it? And that's where we got to. And we knew at that point that, I think we found this authentic demand, and I think we've developed a concept that makes sense and would be, bringing something that they absolutely know they need and are willing to pay for, and there's no questions about it. And that's what we move forward with as our first real standalone software.
Love it. And I don't think it's really common. We all have bias from being part of an industry and trying to solve a problem that we have dealt with. And it's so hard to, you say super easily that I had to admit to myself that I didn't know anything about it. And it's true. Like, and I think that even happens with, when companies develop products internally and then they want to sell it to other companies, and it never works. It never works because it's not the same, and it may be too specific to your company, and other companies might not be willing to pay for it. But I'm also curious on how was the customer discovery process? It was as simple as just calling a couple of like subs and GCs and just call them, and all of them being happy about, yeah, Mike, sure, let's meet. I'm going to give you feedback. Or it was a painful process?
Well, for me, the group of people that were in there, there was 10 companies, with 10 people that had very qualified expertise with a concept that they wanted to, bring forward to the market. And what we were trained to do is find contacts and ask them if they'd have a call to hear about, something that we're working on. So usually, what we learned about how to influence people, like everybody wants to help if they can. So, it wasn't that hard I had a pretty vast network already from 15 years being in the industry. Was able to leverage LinkedIn and that sort of thing. So yeah, usually people were receptive to help. It wasn't like I was selling to them. I said, I need to learn something. I'm trying to come up with a concept. I want to do this thing. You're an industry person, and I think your feedback would be valuable for the process I'm going through. And yeah, they would pick up the phone, and then I had an order, right? I had to, you couldn't just say, what do you think of my product, right? You'd have to say, okay, I know nothing. The first thing I need to do is find out, from my first tranche of people, which I can call again. But the first thing I want to find out is, is there a pain, a meaningful pain here regarding projects getting done late and over budget? Or do people just say, that's just the way it is and I don't really care? I didn't know. Like, I assumed that if you're hiring consultants at the end of a job and losing money, that's a problem, and that you're willing to fix that problem. But what I was told was, let's not assume that. Let's assume that maybe they say, no, I don't care about that. I just want to go to work and make money. So we did go through that, and then it moved into, okay, so you've talked to 5 different people or 15 different people from 15 different entities, start to zero in on a few of them and start to dig deeper into, okay, we got it's a problem. Now, do you want it to be solved? And are you willing to do some things to solve it in your organization? And then, yeah, the answer, with certain entities, owner and contractor side, was, yeah, we would love to. And we just, we can't be too, not too much change management though, right? Like, we can't derail our entire process here. But, so that started to tell me, like, what they really want is some automated analytics and not have to learn everything. What they want is a plug-in, and they want an easy button. And then I was like, okay, so if you had that easy button that you just hit a button, and it said all these things, like which ones resonate with you about, things that are meaningful to you to constructively influence the outcome of the job. And do you think you can use that to your advantage? And do you think that this information speaks to you in meaningful ways to manage that problem? So yeah, there was just an iterative process. One of the other things is, a lot of people didn't want to pick up the phone. A lot of people felt very, nervous about asking questions and that sort of thing. And there's a way to do it. You can't just say, well, do you like my idea? You have to challenge them on their answers to actually get what we call authentic response, like true feedback. Not be like, yeah, no, that's a cool idea. No, be like, what's so cool about it? Yeah, is it so cool you'll write me a check for $25,000 for it today? And they're like, well, hold on a second here. So you had to prod and dig deep, and you had to, get them to giving real, not supportive response, but real feedback that's meaningful. And my days in dispute resolution trained me pretty well for that, because I had to ask a lot of hard questions. And I had to challenge a lot of response because, when you're going into a construction project and asking about the history, they all have their preconceived biased notions of what were the problems. But if the data's not lining up, I had to be able to challenge them on that. And I got very comfortable in challenging people with information. And instead of just being like, oh, that's my opinion, I'd be like, no, well, the data says that. So anyway, it was quite an interesting thing. I had some good training that got me pretty good at the process. So I was lucky.
Yeah, because it's not easy, and there is a hard truth that nobody wants to be mean. Even if you're providing feedback that you're not trying to be mean, you're just saying I don't like it or I will not pay for it. But nobody wants to do that, right? We always try to be nice, like, yeah, great idea. But then when they call you, it's like, write me a check. No, I'm not gonna pay for that.
Well, maybe when it's done.
yeah, exactly. So and also it's really true what you said about the bias of people in the construction industry, well, it was not a big problem, or the problem happened because of this or because of that, and then when you start digging, it was not real, right? It always happens like that, right? But also curious on the next steps when you decided, all right, I'm going to provide analytics, right? And you have to connect it to the process they already have, the tools they already have, because that's how people like to work in construction, and it makes sense. You don't want to derail and change everything in the middle of a project or from project to project. How do you decide which analytics to show?
Well, yeah. So the number one thing that we really did decide to do that was a major difference from what we were doing previously was not giving somebody a new process to manage a different way to promote a better outcome. What we needed to do was take an existing process and bolt onto it and turn the information into something of use that was greater than the system and the process that they already had. So non-invasive, plug and play type methodology, right? So, okay, you've got a scheduling process, right? You've got scheduling data. We're not going to sit here and say, we're not going to try to give you the better scheduling program than Primavera. We're going to say Primavera is not working, or Microsoft Project's not resulting in the outcomes that you want. There's a myriad of issues as to why. There's a lack of controls. There's a lack of understanding. There's a lack of visibility. There's also a lack of decisiveness on how to communicate it or understand it yourself. So we're going to provide you with that. So you've got a process. We're gonna plug into that process with another system that layers in on top. And we're going to tell you what sort of controls are broken. What best practices aren't you following? What sort of performance metrics can we give you to know what's truly going on in your job? And what does that mean today? And what does that mean for the future of the job? And at every iteration of your current process of doing a schedule update, We're going to make sure you maintain that quality. We're going to tell you how you performed in the last period. We're going to tell you what that means for the future of the job. We're going to tell you, what the decisions were being made because of the state of the job through the changes that are happening in the schedule. And we're going to bubble it up into terms you understand, and we're going to give you, risk gauges around it, so that if there's a problem. We're going to make it visible, right? We're going to make it visible to more than just the site team or the scheduler. And we're going to put it into terms that various people in your organization can see, and force a better discussion with data as opposed to opinion. And we believed through that, if we design it correctly and provide enough access to the people involved and put specific analytics into terms that they understand, so that they can communicate and collaborate, it should solve the problem. And it does. So we worked our way through that. And then alongside that, since we had such success with customers and prospects doing that customer discovery process, we've created, a much more intense ongoing customer discovery effort that we work with them to learn, what's working, what's not, what else would you like here? How does that need to look? And is this something that can benefit the collective as opposed to just your preference? And we evolved the product through the customer's ideas. And it continues to, alleviate many pain points along the way, but we didn't change anything, right? All we did was empower.
No, I like it. And there is a hard truth that it's like you said, it's taboo. Nobody likes to speak about that. Not a single construction project finishes on time, and it's and it's true. And I do feel that every time you sit, or every time I've been on a kickoff meeting for a project where the owner is there, the architects are there, the GC is there, they're all trying to believe that the first schedule is going to work and we're going to finish in 3 years, but we all know that's not true. And I do think that it's something we need to stop doing. And it's fine that we don't succeed and do exactly finish exactly at the time the initial schedule said, because life is like that. You get a hurricane, you get bad weather, people get sick. There is no way you can finish exactly on time. But what you can do is what you guys are doing, which is like empowering people with the tools to make it as efficient as possible. Which nowadays I do feel, I always speak about something that happened to me when I was on a large construction project in Vegas, where there was a room that was full of schedulers. There was like four pool souls just updating the schedule. That's the only thing they were doing the whole day. And they didn't have a clue on why the delays were happening. Nobody had a clue why the delays were happening. And I feel that what you're doing is really important. And also want to understand, like, when you provide these kind of tools, right? And the data, let's say I'm a big construction company, a GC or an owner. You will tell me things I can improve based on my historical data? Or what happens if I don't have historical data and this is the first project I work on? How do you deal with that kind of things?
So we are, like I said, we plug in to the data you have, and it could be on a historical project, it could be a project that's going on today, or one that's just about to start, right? There's a bunch of different risks at each stage. In the beginning, you want to make sure that the schedule's built well enough to manage a job. You'd be surprised that close to 88% of schedules are not following the best practices to a point where you can trust the float values. So if people are using it and they're making decisions based on float values, which is what you're supposed to do, chances are you might not be looking at the right critical or near critical paths if you have not followed best practices. So that's, we'll call that the foundational stage, is quality. And then there's performance, right? There's looking at, okay, how are we performing over time? What sort of impacts have we undergone? Because we're going to. and it's going to happen on every job. But how are they responding to that? Because I firmly believe, and now I have a lot of you know, stories and success stories of customers that have dealt through all the challenges and still got done on time. But the thing that you need to know is what can the performance data tell me? And there's a line in the sand at the end of a period, and what are the decisions you made, and are they proper, good decisions that factor in future risks that we can glean from history on this particular job? Now, the other side of the equation is, okay, so we can do that on every single project, and we can provide you with, a tool for you to understand what's going on here, and what does that mean today, and what does that mean for the future, and make that visible to, multi-layers in an organization. And that, to me, solves the project controls gap that exists in this scheduling process. Project controls is putting in the right controls and understanding the data to make good decisions, such that down the road you achieve your goal. But then there's, collective portfolio level information. So we can look at all of your ongoing projects, all of your historical projects, and understand patterns that exist at the operational level, that if you, overcome, in order, a specific set of behaviors that exist, across your organization, or a lack of controls that exist at the operational side, that if you place them in as your operating procedure, that they can de-risk your jobs much more. And all you need to do is know which order to educate the people who are doing it, and what sort of controls you want to place in your procedures. You can solve problems two ways. So yeah, things can happen at the operational level that trickle down to how you manage, and then every project's its own story. You've got to have both layers covered to solve this scheduling problem. But yeah, we never, most of the customers will, send us all their schedule data, get it loaded in. We'll diagnose it with them, tell them, what are they up against from an operational standpoint, and then what are the problem projects that need course correcting today, and where are the ones that right now things are really going okay on. And as you continue to load update data, we'll know if and when a project starts to go off course. So that visibility at all levels is necessary to solve this problem.
How, like, let's say that you approach a couple of companies and for the first time, right? How many of them, let's say 100, how many of them do you feel that just from the start, they're not planning their schedules right? Like, based on your experience, right? That you get new clients, and is it most companies? This is just a few that are really bad. The other ones are okay.
My answer is every single one of them has room for improvement. And that's unfortunate, but every single company out there has issues on every single project, and every single operations group has room for improvement in their organization. And that could vary from a level of expertise to how are you doing things, or what controls do you have in place, or how is that information being communicated, and even to, what are our problem, children here. Every company has them, and it's all the information can be gleaned from the scheduled data to recognize those issues, as well as those projects that require, some attention. But yeah, I haven't seen a single company in my entire life that didn't have plenty of room for improvement on the schedule management side of things.
Really interesting. What do you think the ones that are, let's say, the worst, not the worst, but the ones who have more room to improvement has? You think because it's something regarding the experience of the company, like companies who are being in the market more time has less things to improve, or is it because of, I don't know, what reasons do you think are behind the ones who have more room of improvement? Because they're using data tools.
I would say it actually is. It's interesting that the ones that do it best are your ENR top 200 companies. They're the ones that have actually invested in expert schedulers and project controls teams. They hire people to do analytics, and they hire quality schedulers to manage a process, who then teach through doing with the project managers. So those are the ones that actually invested in a better process. Because they could, I think they've got that brand name. They win those jobs. They have those relationships. They sort of set the standard, and that's where everybody else needs to or tries to keep up with. Because if you have project controls, you and understanding, and you leverage data, you have much more better outcomes. Not just that the project wasn't delayed, it can be, but you've at least resolved the issue, and you're managing it, in a meaningful way. As you move on down through, the latter part of the ENR 400, that's where, they're not necessarily investing in project controls teams, but they may be investing in high quality schedulers. And then once you get past that is where you start to see that the project managers are doing the scheduling, and they don't have a project controls team, and they don't necessarily have, expert or experienced schedulers, as part of the process. And I think that that's related to the fact that, as a middle market organization, you're sort of, you have to bid and estimate in alignment with the best in class companies to win some work. But you don't have the personnel there doing the analytical legwork to ensure success, which eats away at profit margins. So they end up getting stuck. And that's where we now work with both, right? We'll work with the companies that have invested in and embraced project controls to scale the people that they have in meaningful ways to get visibility and understanding across their entire portfolio, doing much deeper, more thorough analytics. And they are probably the easiest people to train. They don't need to be taught. And then we get into the middle market and we fill a void, right? We have to literally use the software to be their project controls presence. And we have to train the PMs on, what does it mean to be what does it mean to build a quality schedule that's trustable to you? And we have to train the executives on what do these metrics mean? And yeah, you can fill that void. It just takes a little bit more time because they don't have the level of education or experience in analytics. But what we do with them is sometimes we'll supplement them during that learning phase to we'll translate the information to them in a meaningful way to influence constructive change. But over time, as they learn to do it themselves, we can hand it off completely. But yeah, there's definitely a pattern out there of which organizations have what level of risk as it relates to these things.
Yeah, but it's really good because in the end, you help both of them. But I feel the really good thing for the mid-sized companies are that you're basically allowing them to compete on a different level, because without your tool, they will have to hire certain resources and they don't have the budget for it. So I think it's really cool because you're pushing like the bar up or highing the bar for everybody, not only for the large companies. And I'm asking a lot of questions, but I'm really curious on
that's okay. I enjoy it.
What do you think are the most common when you approach someone who's not using a SmartPM and let's say they're a mid-sized company? What are the most common mistakes you see on schedules that are not using SmartPM?
I mean, the first thing is, they don't put logic in every single activity. There's a term called missing logic, right? There's the rule of thumb is, every activity should have a predecessor and every activity should have a successor, except for the first activity and the last. And you need to get into that habit. The other thing that's lacking, and I think most organizations, if they fix these two issues, number one, no missing logic. Number two, remember to put in crew logic, right? And to give you an explanation of that, if you're building a building, right, 10-story building, the order is, obviously established through the structure of going floor by floor by floor when you're putting up the concrete. Those follow-on trades are staggered as a result, right? Then there's mechanical and electrical, and then since the concrete's staggered on the next floor, all of them are staggered, but they haven't tied, the crew logic for the, mechanical, electrical, and drywall activities so that they're compressible by design. So if one floor gets late, the other one's not reacting if you're already past the concrete stage, because, it's not logically tied. It just can stack. And what results is people don't realize that, and then all of a sudden you're saying you need more resources here because we're stacked up on 5 floors now, and the response is not timely enough for them to get the additional resources. What they do is they spread the trades, which causes a lot more disruption. So those two issues right there, if you can work on those two specifically, would solve probably, to me, 80-90% of the quality issues that exist. And I would, recommend. That's where when we work with a company like that, we explain that and we say, okay, we don't want to boil the ocean here and teach them to be the best damn schedulers on earth in about a month. It's never going to happen. But we can train them about 2 risks. And then the other risk that happens is compression. Like when delays do happen and they do update the schedule, our human nature is to right the ship, right? And usually they'll do that by removing logic or shortening durations, and which is okay to do, occasionally. But when you get in the pattern of doing it every single month, the schedule eventually falls apart and is unachievable. And then you've got mayhem on the job on a date that you're communicating is possible. You're believing it. Your client, the owner, is sitting there scratching their head going, I don't think this is going to happen. And then you get to that, 60-70% mark when you're like, oh yeah, it's not happening. And yeah, it's all your fault from the rain or the changes or all those RFIs. And they've got no justification, and they can't even use the tool, the scheduling tool, as a explainer of problems because it fell apart. It was overly compressed and unachievable, and the critical paths and near critical paths may not even be the truth at that point. So your argument will turn into a dispute at that point, because anybody can argue you at that point. And that's, to me, like the process that I saw over and over and over, that I'm like, something's got to put a stop to that. And one single source of truth put in front of multiple eyes is a way to do it.
Oh, interesting. It sounds so simple, but it is not. It is not when you have a large project, and it's not a simple thing, but at the same time, it's a must. But anyway, I know you're a really, really busy person, Mike. But so before we wrap this up, can I ask you a couple of ping pong questions?
Sure, absolutely.
What do you think is going to be the next big trend in the AC?
Well, I think we're seeing it now. If you go back and looking at, a lot more technology, a lot of them are very pointed solutions that support the site. I think that the amount of information and data that we have now that's digitized will only naturally result in a lot more analytics that support better operations, as well as better management. And I think that, the next wave, AI is said everywhere, but I say that, that starts with a high quality data management strategy. And I think that getting your data and capturing it in a meaningful way and doing it, making sure that it's of the highest integrity and accuracy, and then leveraging that information to, better manage as well as better operate. And that's really where, fortunately we sit, but it's natural, right? Once the data was digitized, I used to dig through boxes. I'm not doing that. I didn't have to do that anymore. Nobody really does, but nobody really knows what to do with all that data, and they're getting sort of sidetracked by let AI figure it out. But I think that you need to come up with a process of capturing the good data and understanding how to leverage that, and then train the AI to do it. And that's, in some cases being done in reverse, but I think that naturally that's where we're going to go with it. And that will bring us to optimization eventually. There will be, probably within the next 5 years, a lot more certainty, because we have so much data. such that anybody at any time can determine early if, number one, the plans that we put together in the budgets, are they even achievable, or is this very hopeful? And as things pan out, we can get much more predictive with it, and come up with acceleration measures or mitigation strategies that work. So I think that we're going to see the claims side of things usually getting much less, the dispute situation getting better, and I think that projects and budgets will be met, and that's ultimately where I think the industry will go and it needs to go.
I agree. Absolutely. Then if you just do AI without data, it's just dump AI.
Well, yeah, if you don't, like, a lot of people think if you just say AI and you put something through AI, it's going to figure it out. But AI is no different than us. We've got to learn we have to train ourselves on how to look at it to understand it. If you don't train the system and you let the system try to figure it out and tell you something, it might give you wrong information. So, yeah, that AI is all about, automating the way we think and look at stuff and training a computer to do it so we don't have to. It's not throw a bunch of crap in a data in an AI engine and see what sticks or what falls out. That's too risky to even think about. And people are not seeing it that way. So I think you have to be very precise on your methodology and then train around that with good data of high integrity. So if those things are missing, you're probably not going to be helping yourself.
Oh, agree. And then moving to the next question, can you tell me a great AEC software? You can say SmartPM if you want to, but
yeah, of course. SmartPM is one of the best softwares you can buy to help yourself manage through delays and overruns. But I got a couple others I like. One of the ones I really like these days is Clear Story. They're a company that we're actually close with. We haven't necessarily integrated yet, but Clear Story helps with the change management process, which, or change order process, which to me always has such a big effect on schedules anyway. And it is a big hot button when it comes to any discussions of overruns and delays. I think, that type of tool actually does help solve problems that will keep an end date. A lot of the other ones talk about, we'll help with delays and inefficiencies, but they're not actually helping. They're helping, make somebody's day a little bit more automated, but are they actually helping them understand the project and make good decisions on it? A lot of them aren't, but I think Clear Story's, hitting it very nicely. That's one of them that I can think of.
cool. If you could collaborate with any person in history, which person would you choose?
I, I'm an efficiency nerd. That's what I'm trying to do here with construction. One of the things that when I went to school as an industrial engineer, that's what you are. You're trying to use data to make processes and systems better. So I always like to look back at Toyota's lean manufacturing model. They came up with a better way to, study an organization to, guarantee success and optimize their process, which was, at the time there's a guy named Tachi Ono, and he was working with the president of Toyota at the time, and they came up with that. But the other person I really think is cool is Henry Ford. I like that he was an inventor, but I also like that not only did he invent the car, but he invented the assembly line and how to build those things much more efficiently. So I think that those would be two very good people. And I'll even go back to I like Edison, Thomas Edison. He was an inventor. I like what's his name, Da Vinci. Very creative people who invented a lot of different things. That's kind of like those are my people that I find very fascinating.
Good choices. And finally, which one is your favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
I think one of my favorite buildings, honestly, would be the Great Pyramids. I think that there's a lot of history there on how people were able to build something of that magnitude. As a matter of fact, there's evidence of how they manage the process with CPM as well, critical path method type management processes, even back when they were building those pyramids. I've never been there, but I am a person who likes to think about, what it used to be like and how they figured that out. Obviously there's other things like the Burj Khalifa, which is, a massive building. I'm going to want to see that line when it's done. That's like 100 miles long. If they're still working on it.
Yeah. If it's done.
Yeah. I like things that push the boundaries of what was possible at the time. And those are the types of buildings that I find I like, pushing the envelope myself, in pushing boundaries. So the buildings I like to visit are the ones that were pushing the boundaries, at the point in time that they were built.
Love it. Thanks so much for sharing all your wisdom and your journey to put together the amazing product you have put together, Mike. But before we say goodbye to each other, can you tell everybody where they can know more about SmartPM or contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is smartpm.com. Happy to offer that to you to visit. If you want to get a hold of me specifically, and catch up and talk schedule or data or operations improvement and all of that, I'm MPink at smartpm.com. And yeah, if you're interested in learning more about our product, you can just ask for a demonstration through our website. And I really appreciate the time and enjoyed the conversation today.
Yeah, it was fun. Hope you have a great afternoon. All right.
You as well. Enjoy your afternoon and enjoy the rest of, I guess this is an extended summer down there. Do you guys still you have warm weather all the time, right?
Well, yeah. I don't think we even have winter. It's just cooler summer.
Yeah. I know when I went to Fort Lauderdale in like January, I could not get in a pool. I know it was cold, too cold to get in the pool.
True, but that has happened in the last 2 years that you cannot get in a pool. You can go to the beach and just lay there, but you cannot get into the sea. But it's just 2 months of the year, which just get a jacket. And
was it like end of December through middle of February-ish?
Yeah. Well, yeah, in Georgia, it's not that bad either, right? So
yeah, it's an interesting thing up here. Like starting in November-ish, you'll start to have really cold days, and some, in the morning, and then in the afternoon it can be really hot. So you're never really dressed right, and that spans to about middle of February. But yes, you can also have like a 80-degree day on New Year's. So it's so hit or miss here.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks so much for your time, and it was great meeting you.
Yeah, it was really great meeting you as well, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Hope you have a great day. I will let you know when we publish this. All right?
Awesome. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in aecworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.